All right, welcome everybody. I am Cinephile Mike, and I am here with the creative team behind the independent short film Strays. Uh, I am here with executive producer, writer, and star James Rana. Hi, James.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm here with producer, actor, first assistant director, production coordinator, and many other roles that come into play. Miss Catherine Ann Taylor. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yes, my pleasure. And also producer and actor Jane Coteliar. How are you today, Jane?
Hey, Mike, this is great. Really excited about this. Thank you.
Excellent. My pleasure. So, really, I'm going to dive right on in. I'm curious to know with this short little film, how did the three of you come together to work on this film? How did you get to meet, know each other?
Well, there's a wonderful theatrical club in New York, the Players Club, which has been in existence for over a century and plus, and wonderful place in Gramercy Park where people of the arts and business and literature come together and meet, and sometimes they imbibe too much or have dinner, but there's a great deal of passion. And I've been a member for many, many years, and that's where I met Catherine Ann, and then also,
Hmm.
of course, I met Jane. And so it's one of those wonderful opportunities where, with fellow people who are passionate in the arts, who were able to and agree to join me on this venture, which was a very difficult one. And I'm extremely blessed that they both said yes.
Right, like, do you add anything, or does that pretty much
I'm just
sum it up?
thinking, I'm just thinking how we met during the pandemic, James and I, Catherine Ann and I met a lot later, but during the pandemic, the Players Club decided to organize something for the players, and they asked if you want to partner up to do a scene via Zoom. And that's how James and I met. We did a scene from the War of the Roses, and
Yes.
Ah,
I didn't know that. I
and
didn't know that was
nice
like
one.
that was so much fun. So we recorded it. I was in my apartment, he was in his apartment. We had a director, and yeah, and then they distributed the link to all the members, and that's how we met. And then somehow, coincidentally, we learned that James's sister and I also worked on a play together, so completely not related to the club. So it
Small
was meant
world.
meant to be. Small world.
There you go.
And yeah, so I moved to New York in 2018, and I had my first job. I like house managed and helped these two producers with a show at Theater Row. And one
Mhm.
of the producers was getting married, and he had sort of like a business associate, just like for people of the theater, he had like a wedding party, and the
Mhm.
reception was at the Players. And so I went to the club and I was like, I have to be a member of this club. So I joined, and I think I was like the second youngest member. I was like 23 at the time. I didn't know hardly
Yeah.
anyone. And I think that James and I met at like one of the parties, the Halloween party, I think. And yeah, and so then like 2 years later, he asked me to produce for him, and I was so honored that he had, because it's it was like a project that I knew I could really like sink my teeth into. So, but yeah, we all met at the Players, and I had never met Jane before.
Nice.
We met on this project.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
right. I
yeah.
Nice.
I kind of jumped in on the production team much later in the game. So James offered me the part, and then because we're already friends, we started talking about it. And the way the business side was set up, I was like, oh my God, you
Mhm.
needed this and that, because I also have a career over there in the business world, and I'm like, let me
Right.
help you, and that's it. And it has been over a year of me helping, and
Aw,
yeah, but
I have
wonderful.
no shame when I went to say that I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I don't mind saying that. Some people are too
Hey.
embarrassed. I don't mind doing that. So I will say to people, could you help me? Or would you consider helping me? Or would you know, many years ago with this script, for example, I would show it to people and say, is this any good? Have I done anything right? And so when people tell me that, oh, that they have experience, they know things, and they're willing, I of course will take advantage. And I try not to take it advantage, but I will say, please, if you could consider coming on board. And so I get very lucky. I got everyone on this film, everyone, in a sense, were the same way about that. They were wonderful
Nice.
and extremely, extremely gifted and talented and experienced, and they decided to go on this journey with us.
Beautiful. Now, I read that this film was inspired by silent films, in the tradition of, some of the greats, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Jacques Tati. And we don't often get these. They're few and far between. So I guess, James, this is more for you as the writer of the piece. What steered you to deciding to go in the vein of more of a silent film as opposed to one that's dialogue based?
Well, I do want to bring up the beauty of Jacques Tati was the fact that he's pre and post-war, post-World War II, and the fact that he was bringing back the silent film genre from his nightclub act. I grew up loving, and I still love and adore the silent films. And there's something extraordinary about that, and the use of the body language and just how that is international. And what I love about silent films is you could see these films, and they had international actors who would come on these films. Many of them could not speak English, or their English was very poor, but it didn't matter because they could convey these feelings. One of the reasons is that this film, and as you know very well, Mike, is this film also looks at a great deal of the subject of loneliness.
Hmm.
And I work in the theater and I travel a great deal working in theater around the United States. And it gets very lonely at times. It's very extraordinary. I'm very, very blessed to be sharing, working as an actor in the theater, but I'm alone most of the time in these cities. I try to keep myself busy. And I remember having days and days where it's just like if I'm alone, I just don't speak. I don't speak to anyone because I have no one to speak to. And I thought of this person, this character, this man, this immigrant alone, away from his family, thousands of miles away, and he probably has no one to speak to at all during the day. And I thought about that. I thought a lot about that. And also, I wanted this film to have an international appeal in the fact that you don't need dialogue. There is the dialogue from the soul and the eyes and how we all have these conversations every day with people, sometimes without even uttering an actual word.
No, and that was beautifully done. Like the expressions, I remember writing about this in June. Like some of your expressions told me so much more than any dialogue I could have heard. So that's a testament to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the relationships that your character Shamsul, I believe I pronounced that right, Shamsul?
Shamsul, yes, yeah.
Shamsul, yeah, is with Stuart, the adorable little cat. I'm just wondering why a cat, not a dog? I mean, we see so many strays in New York City. Any particular reason why we went with a cat versus a dog, or?
Dogs are a lot to deal with. Well, I mean, really,
Fair enough.
I'm gonna be honest.
Be honest.
Any cinephile, and especially in the world of silent film, watching any experts will say, "Oh, it's Chaplin's The Kid." It's inspired by The Kid because in that, the stray is he takes in an infant that left at his door, and he raises this child, the little tramp, and this little child who he becomes his child who he adores, and two lost souls find each other, and for some reason, I don't know why. But when I wrote this like 13, 14 years ago, I always just envisioned a cat. I don't know why. I never grew up with cats. I know nothing about cats, but there was just something about them. There was something mysterious, something interesting, something portable, and not too difficult to maneuver and film like a dog. And I don't know why. It was always like, why not a goldfish? Well, that's really different, why, but it was a cat. It was just always a cat. We got very lucky. We got very lucky, and that I really am grateful once again to Catherine Ann for finding our cat wranglers.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Uh,
I ended up just looking up like cat agencies, like animal talent agencies. And there aren't that many in New York. And so we ended up using Dawn Animal Agency, and we have a great relationship with them. They, for many years, they provided the animals for the Rockettes for like decades. And they have a wonderful animal sanctuary upstate where there are like working animals, and then there are animals who also they just rescue. They have like horses, all types of big and small animals. And yeah, so the daughter of the original owner, she was one of our cat handlers, like our primary handler. And yeah, so that's how we found the cat. She gave us multiple options. Actually, on that day, we had two different cats to choose from. She was like, I brought two. So you have two options.
Our
Yeah.
original cat, Stuart, originally had surgery like prior to filming.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He
And
got shaved. He got shaved on his like body
Oh.
somewhere. Yeah.
and
And
then
how did
so
you
we
like working with Stuart? It looked like it was a lot of fun. He looked adorable.
Oh, he was so fun. I mean, nothing could scare him. And I think that's what you need in like animal talent, because there's so much action going on around you with the crew and like the talent. Um, like that cat couldn't be spooked. And I've really never seen anything like that before. Just,
Mhm.
most cats, they're gonna jump. But Stuart, nothing could shake him.
So, James, in the film, you get to do, because we're in that silent film range, you have a lot of great physical comedy that must have been so much fun to tap into. Was there a particular scene or moment that you enjoyed more than the others that you got to do, or, the different ones that you had?
well, there was so many things, and there was so many different directions that this film could have gone in. I'd say one, and which took a lot of choreography. There was, moments was there's a scene with a bag of oranges. And it's I just want to say one thing because when you write something, you go like, oh, this will happen. But then when you actually have to do it, that's a completely different thing. And Catherine was there with me during rehearsals. I spent years studying, and I still continue to study clowning. I began as a clown. I've worked with circuses and I was a street performer. I recently just did a workshop with Bill Irwin. And I have a dear friend of mine named Joel Jeske, who's a pretty well-respected clown. He's worked internationally. He's based in New York, and he teaches a lot. And I said, Joel, we have these things, and we need your help. And so we got a studio in the city, and Catherine was there, and I bought a bag of oranges. And the whole idea is I pick up a bag of oranges and everything. I'm trying to be a good Samaritan to a senior citizen with her groceries that she drops.
Mhm.
And how can we make it funny? And well, I mean, Catherine, you were there in rehearsals. There was a lot of different ways we took things.
Yeah, it was really fun. I got to sit in on, we like booked a room at it wasn't Ripley Greer, but it was one of the rehearsal studios near Midtown, and just practice different ways that you can, like that scene, it's very specific physical comedy. And they took a long time and we bruised a lot of oranges.
A lot of things, and even there's like, see, like, I'm going to give some where an orange comes flying at me, and we had to rehearse that. And I always knew we were
Of
doing something
course.
right when Catherine was sitting in the room and we could hear her laughing.
Right. Getting that reaction.
Yeah. And I do also want to say that, like this is testament to all the people working on this film because our wonderful director, Or Schreiber, who was also an acclaimed dancer and choreographer, looked at these
Mhm.
moments. And then we would work it a few times and then going back into the editing of all these things and how to piece them together. And, but Buster Keaton said something, and I highly agree. And I hope everyone here agrees with me. He said, comedy only truly works in a full shot. He said, you
Mhm.
need full shots to do comedy.
Mhm.
And
I
so
like that.
that's filmed in a full shot. We
Yeah.
tried to do as many full shots. I said this to Orr, and Orr's like, we need full shots. Not instead of like cutting from close up to all these things. He's like, having these full, how long can we keep the camera rolling? Which is a beautiful thing.
Mhm. And that scene also kind of sometimes goes back to that lesson of no good deed goes unpunished,
Yes, yes. We,
despite
we
your
all
best efforts.
we all try in life to do things or to do good deeds, and it usually sometimes bites us. And
Mhm.
in this example, there was an issue with an orange.
So speaking of those scenes you talked about with trying to have like the big wide shots, the full scenes for the comedy, and there's a few. Um, mini spoiler: there's an entertaining number that takes place at a gas station. It's a dream sequence at a gas station.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how hard that one was to get through, because I was laughing out loud so hard. I could only imagine. And Jane, Catherine, you can speak to that scene as well as the producers when you were crafting that one. What that took to put together.
Oh my gosh. Well, James, you go first.
Okay, I will start. Then I want to hear from Jane and Catherine. That actually is the final scene that we shot for the film.
Wow.
It got its own day.
Yeah, it got its own day of shooting. I had a different location I had originally wanted, or thought of, and our director of photography, Adam Baron Block, said it would make more sense if it's at a gas station. I was like, oh, now I got to go find a gas station. And luckily, we have a friend who owns a gas station, by the grace of
From the
God.
players.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I know. We got very lucky. And so
Calling
he
in
did
all the
this,
resources.
all
We
the
really
people.
did.
Yeah. All I can say is I was exhausted. I hadn't slept for days. I was just praying that we would get through this. I had to get there early to reserve everything so we can set up and all that. And like as I remember, I'm on the phone with Catherine and it's early in the morning and like some guy like he's pounding on my car door trying to get money from me because we were in the Bronx somewhere and I was like, oh God, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna get mugged? And it was raining and it was raining on and off. So it's rain. There's a close up. I'm just going to say this. I do very little acting in this film because there's a close up of me looking exhausted and that's not acting. That's actually how I'm feeling at this moment.
Yeah, by that point, it was day four out of 4 of principal photography. And I had run 3 21-hour days. So I tried to wake up and I was like, I will not be there. I'm so sorry. I can't make it. And everyone was like, it's cool. So I sent a bunch of food, like crafty, from my house in an Uber up there. And it was a pretty quick day. It was like 2 or 3 hours y'all were there. Yeah.
We had a wonderful group of people, wonderful, wonderful group. Once again, and I do want to say one thing that everyone that worked on this film, everyone, I say they only do, just my wonderful producers who did, but everyone got paid for their time. We made sure that everyone, but it was so little. It was so little, and they still came out in the rain, and that is the most beautiful thing, and I'm forever grateful to all those people. And we have to dance.
Yeah, Mike, I'm completely with you on the dog thing. I mean, I love our film. I think the cat is definitely the right choice, but personally, I'm a dog person.
Me too.
Yeah, so I have mine lying down like right there, and she's behaving very well because she knows something's going on.
Aw.
The question is for how long. But I was also not there on that day. I was there the day before. It was a shorter day, but I saw the choreography in advance. So I was really excited to see how they're going to put it together later in post-production. But I remember all the discussions about the choreography, and Orr is phenomenal at that. He's a dancer. He also choreographed. I feel like most of the film has been choreographed in one way or another,
Mhm.
and that's just that's the part that's more and more apparent. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching it once it came to fruition. But on that day, just like Catherine and I was more engaged, with the LLC setup, distribution, marketing, accounting type of stuff.
Which all important,
Right.
regardless of the length of your film, whether it's 2 minutes
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
3 hours. So I'm gonna ask both of you, Catherine and Jane. So you also got to perform in this piece, in addition to your back behind the scenes roles. So Catherine, you were a dancer, and Jane, you were, as in the credits listed, lady with the cupcake.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I want to go to you, Jane, first. So it's interesting where that scene comes in, and it's so hard to discuss this without spoiling it for the viewers. We want everyone to watch it. We don't want to spoil it, but she's almost this ethereal presence. Who was she to you, and what purpose did she serve?
So to me, and this is actually what was happening in reality as well, she embodies giving and taking care of him. So there are certain things, like it's a special day for him, right? We know how it starts, we know how it ends. She knows that as well. And she openly, with an action, gives. Whereas throughout most of the film, he is the one doing the giving. right? To a certain extent. Of course, it's you know, a matter of interpretation, but if you just look at it in a more simple way. So obviously, in some way, she does know him. She's there exactly at the moment. I'm also trying not to spoil anything. She's there exactly at the moment when he's in that state, that, you know, when he's gotten to that point where somebody like her would appear and, you know, offer him something that is very meaningful. And believe it or not, for me to prepare for that, and I'm an actor first, I produce rarely. I produce when friends need me. So that's what it felt like during those days as well, because I know that James was stressed out. I also know that he did not have enough to eat, right? So I knew I had to make this moment perfect. I put a lot of effort into my props. Again, try not to spoil, but there are props involved, right? So I wanted to make sure that he's gonna like it. So I really got into the character. I have to make sure that he is happy, and it's a very true and real moment for him. And it's not, you know, something where he feels the obligation to give back.
And I have to say, and this is a credit to, I believe you said your DP was Adam. Your cinematographer's name was Adam, and or just the lighting, the shot, the atmosphere was that they call it the magic hour, right? It was just so visually stunning with the sun setting over the boardwalk. And I was like, why am I not standing at Coney Island right now? I wanted to be there live with you. So my hat's off to them. I know they're not here, but spread that word. Visually, like the stuff on the boardwalk was such a delight to see.
It's very Fellini-esque. Very Fellini-esque.
Yes. Which almost like, and I was going to ask this, I was wondering, I know I'm kind of hopping back and forth with the questions, making me think why you opted to do this film in color versus the more traditional silent film black and white, but I don't know if it would have landed the same, because the colors are so visual and the tone is so nice that it actually, color was almost like another character in this for me.
Yeah, what's interesting about it is that I remember during the edits, and I would, you know, I would see the emails that or and Adam, he would go back and forth with Adam, showing him stuff, and Adam, they would give each other like editing notes as they were working on technical things. And I remember Adam kept on writing, I really think this film should be black and white. Just go with me on this. And I remember like he even like watched a version of the film in black and white. But there was just something about the color, the pop, and the coloring of this film was, it was very interesting, because then we were asked the question as they were coloring the film, like what tone, what look. And I mentioned a director that you know, Mike, but like a lot of people did. I mentioned the Finnish director Aki Kaurismäki, because he uses a ruddiness sometimes in his colors to show the drabness, but then has gorgeous moments. And I just thought of, I love Coney Island very, very much, but also, like there's like a ruddiness sometimes, you know, and you know, nothing pops, but like the fact that the color, you know, that on that evening on the boardwalk, that's a natural popping of the gorgeous, that beautiful sky.
And so, Catherine, you're a dancer. She doesn't speak. Well, I mean, no one speaks. But did you choose to be the dancer? Was that one written? Is that just something in your wheelhouse?
You know,
It's a riot.
It is, isn't it?
In a small moment, it lends its impact.
I love that. I love that, even that small moment, because I feel like it's not more than 3 seconds. So I think, or on that day, I was wearing that outfit, and Or was like, why don't you just like hop in the car right now, and like we'll go around the block and do this, because like I want a dancer to be in the car. And I was like, Or like, I'm not a dancer. And he was like, just like stretch like you're a dancer. Like, can you stretch? And I do yoga. So, I mean, I am flexible from yoga. So, and I actually have a friend who I've had since I was 11. She is a professional ballerina. She's in the San Francisco Ballet right now. And so I was used to just seeing her use every space available to stretch. That was like how we grew up at sleepovers and stuff. So I knew kind of how I just copied her. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny. you know, all the different tropes. So while your character James is driving the Uber, we see the rideshare, we see all of the different fares that he has throughout the day. Some are very touching moments. I'm going to leave it there. And some are very comical, you know, and I'm, you know, I won't lie. I'm sure because I'm an actor too, and at one point in my life or another, I'm almost positive I had to change some article of clothing in the back of the cab at some point when I was running from one side of Manhattan to the other. I think all four of us have probably done that at one point. Your laughs are telling me that it's true.
Totally. It's like Princess Diaries too.
I
Yeah.
once
Yes.
walked around the city with garbage, once with a chair. So yeah, I hear you. Totally on the same page. Yeah.
Well, you know, I did the Fringe Festival once. I used to have to, and you get no time in the theater. So I remember I used to have to get ready beforehand. So I had like makeup and my hair done while I'm riding the subway. We've all been there. The joys of the theater.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I do want to say the wonderful woman changing her clothes in the car, Angela Strauman, who's a wonderful, wonderful actor, and she's a great improviser. We've done a lot of improv together, and she's has such a great spirit, and she just took that note and she just made it her own and just brought so much wonderful. Everyone did. Everyone in that car. We got a lot of I got some great well-known New York actors who are in that car
Yeah.
who did this
Everyone.
because they like me or they feel sorry for me, but I like to think they like me.
I think they like you.
They
Yeah.
like you.
And so that's my question. And was this when you scripted this? So you said before that you've had this script on hand for like 13, 14 years. And you know, 13, 14 years, we didn't have rideshare programs the way we do now. So when you were coming up with all those different people that were going to be in the back of your car,
Mhm.
were did you have specific tropes in mind you wanted? Did they change on the fly? Are there any you wish you could go back and add that maybe hit the cutting room floor?
Well, a lot of things had to be changed with this, during pre-production meetings with the script, just based on the fact that we didn't have a lot of money. We had very little money, whereas people are now saying you had no money, which is kind of sad because that was half of everything I own. Uh, but I mean, a lot of it was based on, well, what is feasible? What can we do? Or certain things, my dear friend Dina, who came on board as the costume designer, who's very busy about going over things with costumes and going over wardrobe and what was possible. I'll give you an example. I had in an early script, I wanted a car full of nuns,
Oh yeah.
and that never
Okay.
happened. That never happened. There actually is, speaking of, for some, I always take moments from life, and I think we all do this, beautiful moments that we see in life, either sad or annoying, but I always go for the beautiful. And one of the most beautiful moments I ever experienced in my life was walking along a boardwalk in the city, and there was a nun on roller skates.
Hmm.
And it was the most beautiful, beautiful thing. And I wanted to have that in it, but that was never able to do that. And if we ever get to do the feature, there's going to be a nun on roller skates. But yes, we were going to have a lot of different people. And, you know, Orr comes from the world of dance, and he's also a wonderful, in his love and passion of cinema. So there's also that great importance of improvisation. So as we were filming, let's try this. So he added. There's a scene with a guy with a car in the car with the back seats full of balloons,
Mhm.
and that's our actual tribute to the red balloon.
Mm. So that actually segues nicely to my question that I have for you, Catherine. So, you know, in the intro, I listed the multitude of jobs that you fulfilled while working on this film. And, you know, I can only imagine when you're kind of trying to piece all this together. So, like, as the production manager and the coordinator, like going through the budget and making sure we have all these props and all these things and all these moves to go in the back of this cab with the boxes, the balloons, and everything else. Who knows how much the budget was for just the oranges, but then also, you know, producing the piece, performing it at the one day. How did you find balancing your multitude of tasks? I'm sure that must have been entertaining.
It was. You know, it's funny. I feel like I can't fully remember everything that happened because so much happened so quickly. Um, but as we were getting closer to production, we were like, well, you know, is Catherine Ann going to be the AD or are we going to find another one? And I was like, we have many things going on. There's so many people involved. I can't do it. And then we got closer and closer and we couldn't find an AD who was available because like they get booked out. So it was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to be the AD and I'm going to schedule 80 shots and it's going to be great. And so, luckily I was in grad school for film producing, and I was used to making schedules for classes and other indie films. So, I just started, I basically had a strip board on, with like each shot is a strip, and I would just move it around in Google Docs. And I spent probably like 30 hours doing that in the 2 weeks leading up. Just trying to figure out how to make it all work with all these extras and the cat. There are union rules for the cat. Um, so that took up a lot of my time, just making sure that everything was on schedule. But a lot of the props and stuff, I think somebody went around the block and found those balloons like during that day. I was blowing
Nope,
up the balloons. I was
that was
putting
me.
the boxes together. It
We're
was
doing that
you.
together. Yes.
Yeah.
I went to the store and we were in Coney Island. I just want to say this. I went to the store because he's like, get balloons and get chewing gum. And I didn't tell you this. I almost got assaulted at the convenience store when I bought it. Someone acted up in the store and almost assaulted me. I almost got, yes, that day. All for
Wow.
art. We suffer for our art.
See,
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
yeah.
I blocked it out of my mind.
You're like, isn't it enough that I have to get hit with oranges? I mean, not this too.
Yeah, the things you go through help making a movie.
Yes. And I mean, we just stored a lot of the props like in James's car. Every morning I would like do an order of donuts, like Dunkin' Donuts, like breakfast sandwiches and stuff. So we would pick those up when you hit, because when you get out of the F train on Coney Island, you can get that. So I'd like find someone to like bring it with me because I couldn't do it just me. So I was just sort of trying to think about the meals and think about like I'm used to doing my own short films and my own plays, and I'm used to always doing everything. Like I used to not even know I was the producer when I was directing. So I'm very used to just doing everything. And it's kind of a situation where it's so independent that everyone is just figuring it out. Like if you can't do a task, you find someone else to do it. Yeah.
And she's really good at it. She's the best, really.
Thank you.
And speaking of the multitude of tasks and the roles and the different things in this film, and I talked a little bit about how, like all of you have play characters in the film. The color scheme played a character almost, but then the other most important character, especially with silent film, is the music. The music was gorgeous in how it was, underscoring the different moments and the moves. And it was interesting because usually when we have soundtrack like that, we hear it, we don't see it, but in this case, the musicians actually are also characters in the play. What was the inspiration behind that? It was almost like that Wes Anderson style of filmmaking almost, right? Like you're panning across, you're watching the character, and then all of a sudden you see someone playing the music. So where did the inspiration come from to incorporate the musicians into the film as opposed to just keeping them on the track?
I always love when especially in New York, even in the subways, some of them are not good, but so many of them are very good. When you see the live music, and I think that's a great thing. You mentioned Wes Anderson, who's a huge, huge influence. There's also this great film from Iceland. I don't know if many people have seen called Woman at War. It's an environmental comedy from Iceland,
Huh.
and they have a marching band that plays music, and like they're in the film, and they're actually like they'll be in scenes where like they're just hanging around sitting, and then when it starts with them when there's music called, they get up and they start playing. So I love that idea of them being part and the musicians, and a lot of these great musicians who came on board, these are acclaimed, international acclaimed musicians, and of course a lot of them are friends of Orr, and
Okay.
they came on board they were so passionate. A dear friend of mine, Shai Wetzer, who's a great percussionist. He's the frame drum player in the gas station scene.
Mm-hmm.
I toured with him for 2 years, and I love incorporating. There's that theatricality. I know especially people, and we're seeing this more especially on Broadway and this music when we see the musicians on the stage, and because that's a character as well, and I love that as well. So I think and music is an international language.
Mm-hmm. Anything either of you like to add about the music or the
I'm just listening to how
James
James
covered
is
it?
describing it, and it's taking me back, and I'm like, yes, it was so wonderful. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know many of the people involved in the film until they came to set, you know, in a few
Mhm.
emails. So it was really fun to meet, you know, those musicians, and just to watch them work. Yeah, and I loved because our director edited the film as well, and I just loved how he wove the music in. Yeah, it was really wonderful. I feel like sometimes filmmakers who are very like film oriented, they don't think about the music. And I love that
Mm.
James, you thought about it. It wasn't an afterthought, it was a forethought.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so important.
When you
So,
surround yourself with extremely talented souls,
mhm.
they all bring beautiful things to the film, to anything that you're working on. So I'm really one of the most blessed people on earth because we got to make we made a dream a reality, and now we're seeing where this reality is going.
Mm.
And so, as we've been talking, and I've been listening to everything you've all been saying, so I've heard the story's been in your head, James, for about 13 to 14 years.
Mhm.
At one point, Catherine, you referenced that it was only a 4-day shoot. So, this is about an 11-minute movie when we subtract the time for the credits, and we know the number of hours it can sometimes take just to shoot a page or two. And the way you said some of it took a day, this could not have been a simple thing to put together, though. I'm assuming there seemed to be a lot of moving parts. And James, you even one point said it seems like we were told we had a little money or we had no money. So we talked about the Wonderlist, but there had to have been some challenges to overcome, which you did. So what? And feel free or not. I mean,
I just want to say that I still, Catherine was saying how all the props and costumes and all that, so many of them were just kept in my car. And believe it or not, still quite a bit of props are still in my
still
car.
there.
I have
Oh,
not removed, I still have the, well, I don't want to say trauma, but it was, talk
it's
about
traumatizing.
suffering for your art. And there's an enormous payoff, but it was a lot. And I mean, I'm going to say this because I saw what Catherine and I saw what Jane were going through also on their end. There was a lot, and I was just beyond, I'm embarrassed to say I was extremely stressed the entire time, and not thinking this was, just then on top of it, it rained heavily on a day that it was,
And I got him soup and he didn't have it.
I didn't have
Oh,
soup. Yeah,
That's kind of in line with the character. He
yeah.
didn't have the soup.
It was everyone, everyone was amazing. They believed in this story. They read this for so many people were like, some people said no, and I don't blame them, but the people that did show up, something about the story touched them and they wanted to be a part of it, knowing that even if it might have been a very small part of it, it was still extremely important. And I always stress that every nothing was minuscule. Everything, every effort was enormous, enormous, and it moved the story.
Mhm.
and it is a beautiful story. And given that we're and depending what some people say, right? Some people will say we're fully out of the pandemic. Some people will say, well, we're still a little bit in the aftermath of the pandemic. And so much of that, what you talked about, like people are lonely. And sometimes as actors in New York, we're lonely. And during the pandemic, we all experienced that, right? Like what we're
Yeah,
doing right now was our way of life. Um, so I want to say one of the things that I appreciate about the film was that it was this universal tale of loneliness and that need to connect. So I want to say how timely I felt the themes were, but also how universal they were and how you crafted this. And in such a short amount of time, I was maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm going to say I was very impressed to see this full arc carry, with a denouement, with an ending, and in a time crunch. So that's a testament to the work that all of you did. So I applaud you for that
thank you.
because
Thank you.
sometimes it's hard to do those things in short films. I've seen a lot of short films, and sometimes you're left a little dissatisfied. But that was not the case here. So I do want to say that. So I guess the last question I'm going to ask, and we can just go around in the circle, is what is it that you hope people will take away from this film when they see it? Yeah, no, I
James,
always
you
end
go
with the
first.
hard one.
That's a tough one.
Hmm.
James, you want to go first?
Yeah, you should definitely go
Yeah.
first.
I would love to, I'd love to see people come away with a smile because I don't think people smile enough. I love moments, especially when I go see something where something I did not expect, and I just think, oh, this is wonderful, and I don't mind. I'm not embarrassed to laugh out loud or say, this is beautiful, this is wonderful, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring some joy, and maybe we'll bring a little joy, or maybe people will feel a little more sensitive to others around them. Because a lot of the short films, I'm just going to say this, in no way am I trying to criticize or say any, but I've been seeing so many things where the stories are either very traumatizing, extremely serious, dealing with all, and there's already enough if I wanted to see trauma, I could just turn on the news. I could open a newspaper. There's enough harshness and and trauma and loss and suffering and pain, and I wanted to just bring something beautiful in the midst of everything, something poetic and lovely. And if we could have just give people 12 wonderful moments, 12 beautiful moments, I would like that. And I love the fact that it's a silent film. There is a little dialogue, but I love to see how, people from around the world that watch this film as we're getting into more festivals, which I'm so grateful for, how it's going to touch them.
That was going to be, I'll build off of that. It is, yes, it is very New York, which we love, but at the same time, it speaks across cultures and across, it's, I would say across languages, but nobody really speaks. So it's that basic, human nature and understanding that we must have and maintain for each other. And that is, I would prefer that people watch it, slow down a little bit, and have that serve as a reminder to just, there are others around you. They may be going through something good, bad. They may be having a day. They may be having an important day. But show some understanding and some kindness, and you will get it back. You're not alone. And I really hope that it travels with that message across the planet, that it doesn't just say, well, yes, it is awesome that, New York is a character. And yes, it does land very nicely. But I think there is a lot more to it than that. I think it's a global film. So.
Yeah. I'll share a little story from my life to illustrate what I hope people take away from the film. And I was thinking of telling this earlier. So I actually had a black cat come into my life in a similar way to this story. And I think that's why the universe brought me this to produce. So in October 2020, we were like kind of in the midst of the pandemic, and I was starting to just feel kind of depressed about my life. I was like, what's going to happen to me? When are the arts going to come back? And I had gone for a drive, and I got home, and I was sitting in my car, and I was like, I just really don't want to get depressed. Like I don't want to get depressed right now. And I opened the car door, and I swear, there was a black cat who was trying to jump into my car, like jumping on the car. And he ended up coming in the house with me, and he jumped on the table and jumped on me, and he slept with me in the bed that night. James, I don't know if I told you that story, but we still have him. I gave him to my parents because I didn't want to subject him to having to live in an apartment in Brooklyn where I used to live. But I feel like that cat was an answer to my prayers. And I feel like when there are like peaks and valleys in life, and when you're in a valley, like the universe will show you that there is a peak coming again, because that's how life works. And like I just feel like a little cat is like a gift. Like there will be little winks that show you that life is going to get better again. And I think this whole movie is kind of a reminder of that.
That's beautiful.
We just discussed this also recently, all of us, that if it advocates and promotes animal adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that too.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. And it should. It should.
Yes.
Also across the globe. Yeah.
Yes. So just in closing, for anyone that's watching this, are there any social media handles or anything you'd like to share regarding the film or your personal one so anyone can follow you to find out more information about Strays and its journey?
We have a wonderful website that the great actor John Andrew Morrison, who plays the man who's going through a difficult day in the back of the car, who I
Okay.
comfort. He's also a Tony-nominated actor, and he designs websites. So
Hey,
our website, straystheshortfilm.com.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we all have Instagram too. Mine is just my name. It's Catherine Ann Taylor with a C.
And mine is at alien_Jane.
Love it.
And I'm at
Mm.
James N. Rana.
All right. And as always, folks, if you would like to check out my review of Strays, it is available on my website at www.cinephilemike.com. You can find me on all social media platforms under that same name. James, Catherine, Jane, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me tonight, and the best of luck to you as you continue on the journey with the film.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Take care.
everyone.